Welcome to the virtual lunch. Awesome. All right, Stuart. So please just tell us just give us a quick introduction. I'm so, feel so privileged that you've joined us today, and we'll just, kind of have a conversation, but maybe just tell everyone who may not know you, who you are.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Ari. And thanks for having me, everybody else as well. My name is Stuart Teicher, and I live in New Jersey. And I was a practicing lawyer for about 25 years. But these days, I make my living as a professional CLE teacher. I teach ethics and legal writing. And I gave myself a ridiculous nickname. I call myself the CLE performer. And I know that that's ridiculous. But the reason I did that is because my feeling is that I know we need to get critical content. I just think it would be a novel idea if we could stay awake in the process. And that's what I strive to do. I teach ethics, mostly ethics. I teach legal writing as well, but my main focus is ethics. I teach seminars in law firms. I teach in-house counsel. I teach marketing events. I teach a lot of bar association stuff. I travel around the country giving those kinds of programs, and I have always done a lot of online stuff and doing a lot more online stuff now. And I also would like to think that I have some decent professional chops as well. I'm on the part-time faculty of Georgetown Law. I teach professional responsibility there. And I teach legal writing to undergraduates at my alma mater at Rutgers. So basically, I teach for a living these days, mostly ethics and legal writing.
Awesome. Well, welcome. So you posted a very funny video recently. And if you have a link at some point, just pop it into the chat, because I think that people will really appreciate it, although then they'll be totally distracted and not be paying attention. But so I wanted to talk a little bit about do's and don'ts, Zoom mistake. I'd love, as always, for this to be interactive in terms of people asking, well, should I do this? Should I do that? What mistakes are you seeing, and what should people avoid?
I think the biggest mistake that I'm seeing are people who are biting off more than they can chew when it comes to utilizing the different functions of these platforms. Being able to navigate an online presentation takes practice if you really want to be able to use the videos and to use even sharing your screen. Being able to work, you think about what happens on one of these Zoom things. And I know this because because I travel so much, every couple of once in a while, I have to do one of my Georgetown programs using Zoom, even before the quarantine, simply because of my travel schedule. And what I noticed a long time ago is that in order to be able to really utilize the functions properly, you need to have like 18 different windows open in front of your face. Yeah. You need the chat window open so you can see what people are saying, but then you need the participant window open so you can see if people actually raise their hand. And then you need you need to make sure you look at the camera. And then if you have notes embedded in your slideshow, you can't see them if you're saying your slideshow. So you might actually have to run a separate computer or a separate device with your slideshow at the same time so that you can see the notes that are embedded in your slideshow. So I think the biggest thing is simply biting off more than you can chew and not being able to navigate the various different modules that come with all these different types of platforms. That to me has been the biggest thing. And I guess it comes down to having an opportunity to practice more. I think the most important things to do, there's three most important things to do. One, don't see that light behind me. Don't have lights behind you like I do right now. I have to have it like now because of what's going on. I got to get another program as soon as we're done. So I had no choice but to set up in here. Normally what I do is I move my camera, and you see this wall right over here? I set with the wall behind me so that the light's in front of me, not behind me. So you definitely want to try to avoid that. The other two things is to raise your computer up. I have a little bit of a computer stand. Even if you take like a box from copy paper and put your computer up there and try to make it either even or coming down, not like selfie stick, like that thing. You don't have to do that. But the third most important thing is really lighting. You want to have light in front of you coming towards your face. And you can go on Amazon and buy a little ring light. I don't know if you've seen those ring lights, but there's all different kinds of lights. The key really is when it comes down to the lighting. That to me is what it is. The other thing I just want to make sure I mention as far as being able to navigate and manage when you're giving these programs is one of the things that I'm challenged with, well, every once in a while I'm challenged with it, is the amount of chat and the amount of questions that come in for you while you're speaking. Now you have to understand something. Normally I teach ethics CLE, which means no one is asking me questions. Okay. I mean, we know what that means. All right. Usually it's just a question of, hey, is anyone out there harming themselves? If not, score, right? But if you're doing a program where there's actually a lot of communication, then what you'll find is that these chats will come in, and they'll be off the screen before you know it. So what I think is helpful, if you can, is to partner with someone who can act as a moderator and read those questions for you, and then to give you feedback to sort of go through the questions, decide which ones need to be brought to your attention, and then to interrupt you. Look, that's me, sorry. To interrupt you as you're going along to give you the questions that you really need to answer, because if they're coming in fast and furious, they'll be gone and you'll be spending your time, navigating the chat window.
I'm so surprised how few people are doing that, because it really doesn't take that much to get somebody is going to be on your program to help you monitor the chat. And even with these virtual conferences that I've seen, I've been stunned that on the social rooms, they didn't have people in the breakout social rooms to help just facilitate. I think facilitators are really important as a part of this, and it doesn't have to be a super doesn't have to be an employee. It just has to be somebody who's willing to help you do a presentation and monitor and engage, help engage.
Yeah. I always grab somebody that I know will be a counterpart to me that has the same knowledge and will be able to interject or say, hey, Ann, this is an interesting thing. What would you do here? Because they're monitoring what's going on, and they can supplement, kind of consolidate all of the questions instead of reading every single question. Like
I was also going to just piggyback on the idea of that stand. And I'll tell you another reason why I really like stands instead of boxes and books. And this is going into sort of, like in the details, but we're all pretty good at this. You want to go from good to great, right? The problem with books and boxes is that as you start to raise up your computer gets higher, you try to get a little bit lower, and your keyboard ends up being up here and it's flat, you can't see it. When you get one of those stands, you can angle it just a drop, and usually you got to get one with a lip on it. You can angle it just a drop so that the camera ends up coming down, but you can still access your keyboard if you're using a laptop, of course. If you've got a big monitor, it's a different story. But I guess you got a monitor, you wouldn't need one of those stands. So anyway, that's an interesting thing to see. If you can keep that angle on your keyboard a little bit, you can still be able to work it, and it makes a difference.
Just wanted to say, Stuart, one of the things you can do if you're absolutely alone and you don't have anyone to help you with the chat, you can always tell people, if you have a question, type question in caps and then your question, because tell them it gets very busy in the chat, and that way your question will really stand out to me. And the other thing is, enlist the people who are in the group. I actually use a little bit of gamification. And what I did was I gave out a prize. And all the prize was the most helpful people in the chat. And these are the people who say, oh, Shereen, such and such has his name up, or his hand up, rather. So use the people that are actually in the group.
The other thing to do, and this is something that I struggle with every single day of my life, is slowing down. I taught this year, my class with Georgetown was a big eye opener for me, because like I said, I've taught plenty of Zoom programs in the past, but I never had to do it so consistently. And one of the things that my students told me is that you simply have to pare down the content and the pace. You simply have to, and it's crazy because there are times where I force myself to speak so slowly that I feel like I'm, like I sound ridiculous. But my students are telling me that you got to do that, and you got to pare down, you've got to be more methodical in your presentation, in your pace, as well as the content. You got to pare down, simplify, and deliver it in a more concise kind of manner. I don't think there's ever been a more important time for us to, first of all, to be kind to one another. As cliche as that sounds, they always say you got to be kind. You never know what someone else is going through. You got to be kind. We know what's going on in the world today, why it's so important. I also think it's a real critical both obligation and opportunity for us to talk about mental health. I talk about ethics a lot. I talk about substance abuse a lot, but dealing with mental health issues is just so important these days. We're allowed to talk about it in the law these days, right? It's a good thing. And I think it's just something that's so critical at these times in particular.
Stuart
Teicher, there's still a way for me to make a little bit of a living.
Stuart.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay. See you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have a good day, everyone.